Tonight, a show of support for the Ukrainian families who have arrived in Toronto so their children can receive cancer treatment.
On a day like today, to be able to welcome these children and their families to Toronto, to let them know they're not alone.
The charity Megan's Hug joined by other local organizations to provide necessities for the families as their children receive treatment at Sick Kids. Plus,
the person was able to accumulate weapons even legally because there is no restriction.
gun control advocates voiced their concerns as the Toronto man accused in fatally shooting 2 people in 2 separate random attacks appears in court today. And
now that we have it in pharmacies, they can stock it, for example, and when someone needs it, it's a shorter distance to get it to their homes.
Pharmacies in Ontario begin dispensing an antiviral drug that can help keep people with COVID-19 out of hospital. Good evening, I'm Kelda Yoon. 6 Ukrainian families who recently arrived in Toronto so their children can receive cancer treatment were given an official welcome by the city today. They were joined by several local organizations that are providing them with support and necessities as they navigate their new home. Dale Manukdug has more.
Marina Shellis and her 2 children were set up with a fully furnished apartment and other essentials. They were also paired with a host to help navigate Toronto.
The subway system with a sick child, it's not that easy to do. They don't have cars. They don't know anyone.
Helena Perrin, whose parents were World War II refugees, says it was an easy decision to help out.
It was important for us to have them over for dinner, meet our family, and just make sure that they're feeling like they have support here, having gone through all the trauma that they did.
We open our hearts, we open our homes, we will do everything we can to make sure that you find a place of love and of comfort and of support here in the city of Toronto.
6 families have relocated here in Toronto over the last month. The ground support was coordinated by local charity Megan's Hug, including housing, clothing, and food.
I mean, a lot of them have come just with a couple of bags on their back and very sick children. So in my mind and heart, it's the least we can do to open our arms to say we're right here with you.
The children being treated range from 2 to 12 years old. 4 have been diagnosed with a brain tumor. Some children are nearing the end of their treatments, others are at the beginning of their journey.
No treatment for a child with cancer is a death sentence. So you cannot stop for 3 months or 5 months.
Dr. Eric Buffet says the family still had to quarantine for 2 weeks upon arrival. Sick Kids is one of 2 facilities in North America to welcome children and families from Ukraine. Dale Manukdug, CBC News, Toronto.
The investigation continues into the murders of 2 men shot and killed in separate random attacks last week. Well, today, the suspect in the case appeared in court. Richard Edwin is charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. Police saying they discovered an arsenal of weapons in Edwin's home, all of them legally obtained. And as Chris Glover reports, that has some advocates once again raising concerns.
39-year-old Richard Edwin appearing for court this morning via video link from Toronto South Detention Centre. Investigators say little is known about the Toronto man charged with premeditated murder in the shooting deaths of 2 men, Kartik Vasudev and Elijah Mahipath, other than the fact that when Edwin was arrested at his home Sunday, he was found with an arsenal of firearms.
I question why anybody living in a big city would need to own a gun or have a gun in the city in any event. And I've been long on record as being in favor of a national handgun ban.
Yet among that arsenal Edwin allegedly had on him were firearms far more dangerous than handguns.
Of those rifles, one of them is what I would describe as being able to cause great carnage.
Investigators say Edwin had no criminal record and had those weapons legally.
You know, why? You know, we're not talking about stamps or hockey cards, we're talking about guns.
Gun control advocate Ken Price's daughter Samantha was hit during the mass shooting on the Danforth in the summer of 2018.
It didn't surprise me that the person was able to accumulate weapons even legally because there is no restriction. This is a loophole. There's no restriction on the number of guns that you can hold.
The Danforth shooting was one of several high-profile shootings that led the federal government to ban more than 1,500 models of firearms, including assault-style guns back in 2020. But that came with a grace period that just last month the government extended to October of next year.
Our government has acted more forcefully to ban guns in Canada than any government in Canada's history.
In order to have a firearm in Canada, a person needs to take a course, pass a test, and an application process, including a criminal record check.
The system actually works quite well in that this is the exception. It is not in any way a common occurrence.
But the rarity of this alleged crime makes it no less unsettling, especially since police still have not released a motive behind the killings, as the accused appears in court again tomorrow. Chris Glover, CBC News, Toronto.
Meanwhile, a service was held today for one of the two victims. Police believe Kartik Vasudev was randomly targeted as he was walking near Sherbourne subway station. Ali Chiasson was at today's memorial.
The randomness of last week's fatal shootings is what makes attending this memorial surreal.
I looked at the name of the student, I'm like, oh my God, that's my student.
21-year-old Kartik Vasudev was walking out of Sherbourne Station last Thursday when he was shot dead. Today, flowers rest on his casket at an Etobicoke funeral home.
I was looking at his grades, and he's one of the top performers in the class. It's just too sad to see. We would never know what came out of that brilliant mind and how he would affect the world,
Vasudev was an international student from India, so much of his family could only attend virtually over Zoom.
He reminds me of me, like working off campus, studying full time, and then managing home and everything.
Many of his classmates from Seneca College are here. They tell us Vasudev was just starting to get his footing after arriving from India just earlier this year.
He reached out to all the student council and all that to make friends over here, take part in student activities and all that.
His murder sent shockwaves through the community of international students and their families back home.
I used to stop at the same station, so it could have been me instead of him. So it's more shocking.
I'm an international student. I work downtown as well. I use the same subway, and this could have happened to me, and this could have happened to my friend. This could have happened to anyone. I was just talking to my mom today morning, and I just told her the whole story, and she was really upset and worried, and she's now very worried about me.
We've seen many international students coming here for a good life. We are a safe place, and I want to tell again to all the parents of all the international students and all the communities, incidents like this are rare and should never happen, but that does not mean this represents us and this represents Canada.
It's not only the international student community that's left reeling. So far, no reason or motive has been given for why Vasudev or 35-year-old Elijah Mahapath were targeted. Two victims unknown to each other, killed in unprovoked attacks. Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
One person is dead after a two-vehicle collision in Brampton tonight. Police were called to the scene at McVean Drive and Countryside Drive at around 8:20. One person was rushed to hospital with life-threatening injuries, but they did not survive. Another person suffered minor injuries. Police say both vehicles remained at the scene. The intersection will be closed for several hours for the investigation. The Bank of Canada has pushed its trend-setting interest rate up to 1%. That's an increase of 50 basis points, and it's the biggest jump in more than 20 years in an effort to help reduce inflation.
Inflation is too high. It is higher than we expected, and it's going to be elevated for longer than we previously thought.
Inflation is running at nearly 6%, which is a 30-year high in Canada. The central bank hopes that higher interest rates will discourage borrowing and spending, which would ease demand for goods and services, allowing prices to moderate. The Bank of Canada is warning that more interest rate hikes are coming as supply chain problems linked to the pandemic and the war in Ukraine continue to drive inflation. And one of the things we've all been paying more for lately will get a little more expensive tomorrow.
You really want to gas up today. This is it. From now on, we're looking at the dollar gasoline, best case scenario in the mid $70s, not the low $60s.
Anyone who did get to the gas station today found prices actually dropped overnight to $1.63 a liter. But as McTague says, come midnight, that will come to an end. And the price for a liter of gas could hit $1.80 a liter by Monday. Meteorologist Colette Kennedy joins us now with a first look at the forecast. And Colette, temperatures today even milder than yesterday. I can get used to this.
Yeah, we had some pretty remarkable numbers there in terms of the temperatures today, especially areas that had a little more chance to be in the sunshine or had that opportunity to get into those southwesterly winds a little bit earlier in the day. And so you'll notice the areas where we have all the 20s and 21, St. Catharines even to 23, and Kingston because of that flow coming off the lake. And it kind of held in there until late in the day, too, for Toronto. So that daytime high just there in the mid-teens, mid-upper, we'll still call it that. Still looking at a few of these showers around, a few isolated thunderstorms, but mostly it's showery activity, kind of off and on through the night now into tomorrow early morning. We'll still keep some of the cloud, and then towards midday, we're going to see things clearing pretty rapidly. But I do want you to be aware that we've got some really strong winds that'll be kicking up. Coming up, I'll take a look at the special weather statements in place for those gusty winds tomorrow and show you those areas. But overnight tonight, 12 for your low and 14 with that afternoon clearing tomorrow.
Thanks so much, Colette. To the latest on the pandemic now, with projections showing there could be more than 600 ICU patients in Ontario hospitals in the coming weeks. The opposition NDP expressing concern it could result in cancellation of surgeries.
When the ICUs fill up, hospitals have no choice but to redeploy critical staff resources away from surgeries. Why is this government continuing to claim that everything is fine when the risk of surgeries being cancelled is so high?
In fact, the risk of surgeries being cancelled is not so high. We are able, because we created 3,100 additional beds since the beginning of this pandemic in order to care for COVID patients, but also to care now for the people who need to have those surgeries done.
The health minister added that ICU rates are stable in Ontario. She says with the province's relatively high vaccination rate and the availability of antivirals, there's less of a concern the hospitals will fill up in this wave. An antiviral treatment for COVID-19 is now available at pharmacies across the province. The chief medical officer says Ontario has enough of the medication for 30,000 to 40,000 people. And the hope is that this will help keep some of our most vulnerable out of the hospital. Lorena Redekop has more.
This Toronto pharmacist received his first shipment of Paxlovid. The first day the province lists the pharmacies dispensing the COVID antiviral, though as of mid-afternoon, this location still didn't appear on that online list. He cautions that it's not a miracle cure.
In reality, vaccines carry far less risk and provide a lot more benefit in the grand scheme of things. Paxlovid is a tool in our toolbox, but that doesn't mean that we should drop the other tools that we have that are necessary to control infections.
He says that means wearing a mask, being vaccinated with 3 doses, and avoiding crowded spaces. Here's who can get Paxlovid in Ontario. Anyone 70 plus, people 18 and up who are immunocompromised, those 60 plus with fewer than 3 vaccinations, and those 18 plus with fewer than 3 vaccinations and at least 1 risk factor. They have to get it within 5 days of coming down with symptoms or testing positive.
My message to all Canadians who may be in high risk, such as the immunocompromised, figure out in your community right now how you can get access to that medication should you need it.
That's the real challenge, is reaching the people who will benefit.
This pharmacy professor says communication about this therapeutic is key. Testing showed it kept people infected with the Delta strain out of hospital close to 90% of the time. In the province right now, hospitalizations are on the rise.
Who we often tend to miss are the people who are at higher risk, those who are not vaccinated, who have a health condition. Often it's hard to find them, for them to be aware. There might be language barriers. They might not be connected with the healthcare system.
Side effects include nausea and leaving a metallic taste in the mouth. Plus, it may not be compatible with other medications.
This could be a game changer if we can get this out. It's not a panacea.
The hope is the drug will keep hospitalizations down this wave. The province's top doctor says the projection is that 600 people could need intensive care. Lorena Redekop, CBC News, Toronto.
Welcome back. Ontario's election campaign officially starts 3 weeks from today. The province's NDP leader is calling on Liberal voters to set aside their party allegiances to stop Doug Ford from winning another term as Premier. Our Queen's Park reporter Mike Crawley has this story.
Scarborough Centre. It's a riding the Progressive Conservatives won in the last election, but by less than 2,000 votes. And with the PC incumbent not running again, it's a crucial target for both the Ontario Liberals and New Democrats.
The majority of people don't want to see Doug Ford elected. So that begs the question then, how do we stop Ford? How do we defeat Doug Ford now?
Andrea Horvath answers her own question with a direct pitch to Liberal voters.
I'm asking folks who may have decided in the past to vote Liberal to keep Conservatives out to recognize that this time that's not the strategy. This time that strategy will split the vote and cause Doug Ford to come up the middle. We don't want that.
Horvath's argument that her party is best placed to stop the PCs from winning, unsurprisingly, doesn't sit well with the leader of the Liberals.
Any leader who starts off this process where they're kind of prematurely trying to divvy up power for themselves, I think they're looking at it the wrong way. People are so tired of politics that only helps politicians.
Stephen Del Duca says ordinary voters don't study polls to decide how to cast their ballots.
You're not going to hear me talk about strategic voting. You're not going to hear me talk about anything other than our team and our ideas.
But here in ridings like Scarborough Centre, persuading people to vote strategically against the PCs is the very aim of a new group of political volunteers.
We like to describe it as voting smart.
Tim Ellis is founder of the group called Not One Seat. Its goal is to rally Toronto voters who don't want Doug Ford re-elected.
In 2018, he won 11 of his seats in Toronto, thanks almost entirely to splitting the opposition vote. By uniting that vote, we can deny him those seats and keep him below a majority.
The jockeying between the NDP and the Liberals will be key to the outcome of the June election. If neither party emerges as the one clear favourite to defeat the PCs, the likelihood that Premier Doug Ford gets that second term goes up dramatically. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
Today is International Day of Pink. Now, it promotes inclusion in schools by encouraging young people to wear pink in order to challenge social norms and stand up against bullying towards their LGBTQ peers. Natalie Collada has more.
Today, students at Beaumont Junior and Senior Public Schools sang their support decked out in pink shirts.
If we believe that we embrace each other and celebrate our differences, that we cannot for 1 second tolerate or put up with bullying or discrimination of any kind.
Songs and speeches peppered today's celebration, and so did hard truths.
We need to talk about discrimination, and a lot of people don't want to talk about it, and they don't want anything to be said, but it's an important topic and it needs to be shared.
To ignore it, it makes it an even bigger problem.
TDSB GSA network member and teacher Kevin Doe says more needs to be done.
We know that there has been a rise in bullying in schools, so not everything is perfect. And with the creation of more virtual technology, we can see that bullying has shifted into a virtual space as well.
And why he's calling for change.
Specifically, some of those challenges are the inclusion of all gender health and phys ed classes, more training for staff to help with that facilitation, as well as more easy access to all gender washrooms, ensuring that their class and their school is a safe environment should be at the forefront.
Natalie Collada, CBC News, Toronto.
And take her t-shirt away.
And you are looking at a live shot of the Toronto skyline, cloudy with on and off rain this evening, making for a few slick roads. Temperatures, though, staying mild. Currently, it is 14 degrees in the city. Let's go back to Colette now with a detailed look at your forecast. And Colette, a bit of shower activity tonight, but nothing too severe.
Thanks, Kelda. Yeah, still some wet weather hanging around. We're going to see those winds ramping up. So still a few things to talk about with this system, but of course nothing like what they're seeing in terms of blizzard warnings and heavy snow to the west of us through southern Saskatchewan and Manitoba and northwestern Ontario. So we'll consider ourselves lucky with what we are dealing with. So some of those showers and isolated thunderstorms, they're more intermittent now as we head towards the morning hours, and a little bit of fog in there as well. Those winds kicking up tomorrow starting early in the day. some of the gusts to 70 kilometers an hour, and still breezy into the afternoon. But after the lunch hour, maybe even a little bit before in some cases, we will see the skies clearing out and getting some sunshine coming back at us. So that's the second half of the day tomorrow. Temperatures into the weekend. So we've got two cold fronts going through. The one tomorrow that's going to kind of push the clouds and the rain showers away, but the second one before we get into the weekend, and that'll be the one that really drops the temperatures down. There are your special weather statement areas with all the windy conditions that we'll be seeing stretching up towards Parry Sound and through Huntsville and that region, and of course back to southwestern Ontario. So a little bit more sporadic here with some of those showers as we go even towards tomorrow morning. Some areas with some wet roads, but we'll be seeing less and less of it. Reduced visibility with some of that fog. But the cloud deck, by morning, it's away from Windsor to about Chatham, Kent, Sarnia, and then as we get towards lunch, it's clearing away from Toronto and eventually over there towards Kingston and Ottawa as well. So Friday, we get to start off with more sunshine. It's not going to stay that way. We're still going to have some more moisture riding through, so into the afternoon for the Golden Horseshoe. Earlier than that, around Lake Erie, we'll be seeing showers developing. Tonight, windy conditions starting earlier here for Windsor. You're looking at those winds gusting 40, 50 kilometers an hour. Tonight, the winds aren't so much of a story around the Golden Horseshoe, and that's why we'll see more of the fog development, and then the winds will start mixing the air into tomorrow. 14 for the high on Thursday. Friday still 12, but that temperature will be falling off. We've got that cooler air into the weekend, why we could see a few flurries mixing in with some of those showers, Kelda.
Oh no. All right, thanks so much, Colette. Finally tonight, a Turkish restaurant owner has sent one of his kebabs where no kebab has gone before, to the edge of space. 3, 2, 1, The kebab was held on a tray and attached to a heat-resistant styrofoam box along with a GoPro camera. A helium balloon then carried it a reported 30 to 40 kilometers to the edge of space. Now that's when the balloon burst, sending the kebab and the camera plummeting back to Earth and into the ocean. And that is our show for you tonight. Thank you so much for watching. Dwight Drummond has our next local newscast tomorrow at 6. I will see you back here tomorrow night at 11. Have a great night.